us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
I don't know why we're not hearing it.
I heard it for a second.
We're live.
Aloha, everybody.
But I don't know if it's doing your intro or not. I'll have to go back in there.
Okay. Well, I have 05, so usually the intro's done by now. So I just start talking. Aloha, everybody. Welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos. I'm your host, Janet Carol Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. And this is Revolution Radio, and our producer is Thomas Becker, and our guest is Elizabeth Wilcock. And we're trying to reach her, so bear with us. But we got some things to talk about before we get Elizabeth on anyway. So she is a mystic trailblazer and creator of the Priestess Path, Lineages of light, initiating women into the sacred and mystic arts. For most of her adult life, she has trained with masters and grandmasters in shamanism, martial arts, qigong, and the mystic arts. She earned 5 black belts in Kung Fu and is the first female master in her martial art organization, where she owned and operated 5 martial arts schools and has trained thousands of students. She is also an initiated priestess and combines her years of experience into her Priestess Path initiations. She's also married to David Wilcock, the well-known author, UFO researcher, TV personality, and ancient alien theorist. So we're going to be getting her on, hopefully, cross our fingers, to this show in a little bit here. In the meanwhile, Dr. Lessin, Sasha, are you there?
I am here.
Did you pull up a bio, or not a bio, an obituary for Stanton Friedman?
No, but I'll just rap a little bit about Stanton, who's just passed away.
Let me just tell you a little bit about his obituary, and then you and the Mad Painter can rap while I try to get Elizabeth on the phone here. And I do have another number to call, which is the agent that booked her with us. So anyway, UFO researcher Stanton Friedman dies after a half-a-century effort to prove alien life. And this is from I just pulled up an obituary, North Shore News. And he was 84 years old. He was a nuclear physicist, lecturer, and world-renowned devotee of extraterrestrial existence, Stanton T. Friedman. He died Monday at Toronto's Pearson International Airport. His daughter, Melissa Friedman, confirmed Tuesday. She said he was on his way home to Fredericton, T-O-N, from a speaking engagement in Ohio. And she did not disclose the cause of death and asked the family's privacy be respected. Friedman built a reputation as a leading authority on unidentified flying objects, alien abductions, and the so-called Roswell incident, considered by many to be the definitive UFO event. He said his belief in extraterrestrials was based on data about UFO events he found buried in U.S. government documents over the years. He grew up in Linden, New Jersey, was employed for 14 years as a nuclear physicist by companies including General Electric, Westinghouse, and McDonnell Douglas. According to his book, Flying Saucers and Science, he first became interested in UFOs in 1958. He began lecturing on the topic in 1967, but he never actually saw an alien himself. I've never seen a flying saucer, and I have never seen an alien, but remember, I chased neutrons and gamma rays for lots of years as a physicist and never saw one of them either, he told the Canadian press in 2007. In fact, I've never seen Tokyo, but I'm convinced it's there. It was in 2007 that the city of Fredericton declared Stanton Friedman Day to honor him. At the time, he said he owed his personal success to the fact that people have an endless fascination with space and the unknown. Can you think of anything that touches more deeply on who we are, where we stand, and the mystery and the cover-up, he asked? People are excited because it opens up the universe to wonderful possibilities. And Kathleen Martin was a friend of Friedman's for more than 30 years and co-authored 3 books with him on UFOs. When he knew the truth, he told the truth, she said Tuesday from her home near Orlando, Florida. He was the original civilian investigator of the Roswell crash. Stanton was a man who did his homework. He always criticized the debunkers because they hadn't done theirs. Martin said Friedman spoke at conferences and colleges across Canada and the United States and in 20 foreign countries. He is also a frequent guest on radio and television talk shows. Now, he was scheduled to be at the 50th anniversary of MUFON conference, which is coming up next month in, I think, in the LA area. And we had him on our show, and the Mad Painter Thomas Becker had him on his show. So would you two please reminisce a little bit, and I'm going to go find our guest, okay? Take it away, Sasha and Thomas Becker.
Okay, yeah, what really got to me that Stanton did is at one of the Contact in the Desert shows with this gigantic screen, he put up a document that U.S. government employees had to sign that says you must lie if somebody says there's a program to investigate extraterrestrials exist, you must say that it does not, and if you don't do this, you're guilty of treason. And you have to sign that, or else you can't get paid by the government. And if you sign it, they can put you in jail. And so I thought, whoa. So that's how it works. And so he was a whistleblower. What do you got on him, man?
Well, I'll tell you, he was one of the first people that I had ever interviewed on the radio almost 8 years ago. And I actually called him an old man on air accidentally.
Not good, not good. What did he say when you said that?
Nothing. He just took it in stride and went. I was trying to get my son to call in and ask a question because we weren't getting no calls. And it was when the station only had, 30 or 40 people listening to it at the time. And I wasn't on mute, and I thought I was. And he said, "Is that an old guy?" And I said, "Yeah, he's an old guy."
That's happened to so many. When I was a kid, there was a guy that all the parents just loved this guy. His name was Uncle Don. He said sweet things to the little kids. And then he thought he was switched off, and he said, "I hope the little bastards are satisfied for today. God, I hate them." But that was the end of Uncle Don.
Yeah, he done stories. I remember that one.
Okay.
But he just took it in stride and went on, and I mean, we never had a problem over the time. I've talked to him once or twice after that, but I never had him on a show again. Wish I had.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Janet?
Well, I went over to Stanton one time, and he always had the front and center. When at the UFO Congress, when you walked in, they always gave him the one right in front there. So I walked over to him and Kathleen, and I would chat with them periodically. And I sometimes stop in and go, wow, tired, just rest and just have a chat. Very friendly, warm, open. I remember one time at Contact in the Desert when it was like 105 or whatever it was out there. And it's like, he was just always there at the table, just waiting for people, very available. And, it was just ridiculously hot. It's like, Stan, you got to get out of this heat. This is too much. I'm younger than you, and it's too much, So we always worried about his health. And so he reminds me, this incident where he died literally on the way home from speaking. I think he was in Ohio. Reminds me how he died. Okay, this is our guest. Let me go get that. You guys talk. Okay.
Okay. So I think it's really interesting when you have a person who's married to somebody really famous to really get this person for who she is on her own and not just as an appendage of another famous person. So I'm really looking forward to getting to know who Elizabeth is in this interview.
It sounds like it's going to be an interesting interview.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times with people like Walters, Scott Walters. I had his wife on, and she, freaked out that I wanted her on and not her husband. But she didn't know I had already had her husband on before, but she didn't know that. But she thought that was pretty cool.
Oh, that's wonderful. Lots of times the wife is even smarter than the husband.
Yeah. I did it with the Smiths too, I think.
Wow.
She had wrote a book, and nobody was paying any attention to her, and I said, well, this female writing a book about aliens is a little different than a man doing it. You don't have as many women doing it as you do men. And she kind of freaked out that I wanted her instead of her husband.
Wow.
Who are we talking about? I just got back.
Richard Smith and his wife.
Oh, okay. Now, I just got a call from Elizabeth, and she's waiting for your call. And try her call now, right now.
All right, give me a second. I'm going to have to go get the number again.
Oh, here, let me see if I can put it in your Skype. Hold on. Why isn't this working? This is an old computer. Poor thing.
So we're doing this parody of people fumbling around trying to get their show together, but we really have it together. This is just an act. So we're really together.
Yeah, this is professional radio.
Yeah, we're very professional. We know what we're doing at all times. Anyway, see if you can get the number. This computer.
I got it. I got
it. This is why I got a new computer, and now that computer's dead. So.
Or I think I got it.
Anybody out there have spare computers? Send them to Matt and to the lessons. We go through computers like nobody else. We're always on them, and we just die. You're sitting there.
Right. Listen, you don't do that, Jan. My sister worked for this radio station, and the guy was complaining he didn't get any peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, so she said, send him some. And the post office was pissed, and the mail was full with peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and my sister got fired.
Okay, so don't really send us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches or computers. Just send money. That's all. We'll take money. That would be a lovely problem to have. The post office has all this money for you. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we're trying to get Elizabeth on. We're just stalling. We're not very good stand-up comedians.
I'm trying.
Do you know any jokes in between?
Yeah, well, we say trying is lying. If you're trying to get someone, means you ain't got them.
We don't got them. We're working
just
on
like
it.
wanting. wanting to means you ain't. You want to do this and you want to do that. You ain't doing this and that.
Wanting is contra against factual. It's not what's happening. So you're supposed to put it in the affirmative, right? And then
it depends on what you're trying to do. Whether you're being direct or trying to be being manipulative, it's a choice. Everything in life is a choice.
So say that you want to have abundance. I want abundance. I want.
That's easy. That's easy. All you got to do is just celebrate what you have and be really happy with that. You can still have your preferences, and then if you don't get anything else, you're still really happy.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
But if you get forwarded to an automatic voice message, then you just roll with it. And you say, well, look, I've got what I've got,
not
and
available.
I'm happy. And although the other thing wasn't available, but when there was a time I could record that this is my preference, but not get uptight because I don't get my preference, right? So that's it. All you got to do is dig what you've got. Don't worry about what you've not. And then when you get something that really is your preference, you didn't expect it, that's abundance. That's what abundance is. Or you can wiggle your butt. That's a different kind of fun dance.
I got booted. Did we get Elizabeth? Did it work yet?
Oh, it went to the voicemail.
Okay, let me see if this is a different number.
Give her my number and have her call.
Okay, that's
229.
Wait, let me get a piece of paper. 229.
299.
299.
5320.
Okay, I'll have her call you. I'll be back.
Musical telephones.
Oh my gosh.
She might have whoever she don't know goes straight to voicemail.
Oh gosh.
Her phone might be set up that way.
Mm-hmm. Well.
Some people's phones are.
That's it. AI can mess up too. Just like Google Maps can put you in the middle of a lake. You got to use your discernment too.
Turn left here. Turn left.
But Siri scolds you on my phone. I told you not. Sasha,
I don't even have a cell phone, so I just get lost and then ask for directions.
Do you know what the number one thing they say to Siri? I can't say it over the air. That's the number one thing that people say to Siri, the automatic telephone.
I don't know nothing about them programs. I don't have a cell phone, so.
But cell phones go two ways, and there's a record in your telephone of every place you went and everything that went through that phone. That's what we know from Snowden's revelations. That's what they've got on everybody.
Well, I know if you go down and buy a phone, by the time you get home, your computer already knows you got a new telephone number.
Oh my gosh, it's a mind blower.
That kind of technology is just too much for me.
And what's going down is they have these things on new houses, and in some places they're going to require all houses have this smart regulator that says how much electricity is going to which appliance when in your house, in every house in the United States.
Yeah, well, that's the idea behind the smart meters.
Yes, that's the smart meter. Exactly, that's what they are.
Okay,
you here, Janet?
I'm here. I'm trying to get into the text on the cell phone to give you the different phone number. I got a different number, but because I can't get the Skype to pull up on my computer to put it in there. You know how you get the first three digits, and then it ends in a 4 instead of a 5. And I think I had that wrong. And the second three digits That ends in a 0 instead of a 5. I think that's the only difference. Does that make sense, Mad, what I'm telling you? Because I don't want to give out her phone number. All right.
En español.
Huh?
Oh, you can't.
Okay.
Wait. You tell me, and I'll say it in Spanish. Wait, I'll come in there.
No. Here, I'll just come in here, and then you can type it in, because I can't get this thing to type it. Oh, never mind. Oh, God, this is ridiculous. Okay. I can't get my screen to reveal the thing to type. Okay, I'll be right back. You guys keep talking. Keep talking.
Oh, my God.
Keep talking, honey. Keep talking. Keep talking.
Okay, when things really look down. Oh, here comes Janet. Let's see what she's got.
Okay, just keep talking.
What do you want us to say when we keep talking?
I went to go here to the notepad. Oh, how does this work? What's a notepad? Keep talking. Never mind, I'll figure out something else.
Okay. So it's important when people around you are going hysterical and worried and so forth, just let yourself relax. Everybody's on their own trajectory. If they want to worry, that's their trip. Work helps, Need for you to get uptight. Don't worry. Be happy. But it's easy for me to be happy. I live in Maui, Hawaii. I'm telling you, it's so pretty here. I ride my bike along the North Shore. There's beach after beach, and they're divided up in zones. There's zones where it's windsurfers. There's zones where there's kite surfers. There's zones where there's body surfers. And there's places where people just swim. And there's turtles. And there's so much wildlife here. And it's so green and so beautiful. Wow. I realize a lot of people go on a bummer, but it's really hard to be unhappy here.
Elizabeth, just call in at 229-299-5320. Can you hear me?
We could.
Yeah.
229. Yeah, that's my number.
299-5320. Okay, we figured it out. Thank you. Bye.
I thought you were talking to us.
So don't everybody who got that number who shouldn't just cross it out, okay?
No, that wasn't.
That's my Skype number. If I don't want to talk, I don't.
Yeah, okay. It's fine. It was okay saying that number because that's a mad Skype number. He doesn't care.
She has joined us.
All right.
I have joined you.
Hi, Elizabeth. You took us a half hour to do that one. Welcome to the show. I'm Janet Kara Lessin, and I'm here with Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, which is my husband, and Thomas Becker is our producer, and sometimes he chimes in his 2 cents. So, first of all, Dr. Lessin, say hi to Elizabeth.
Hi, Elizabeth. Just to give you a warning, I'm going to ask you, what's the inner wisdom of the martial arts, the spiritual inner part that you want to bring to the world? That's what I'm going to ask you. And I like to say what I'm going to do first before Janet seizes the ball.
Oh, that's right, because I talk too much. No, okay. What I want to do is give the talking. We have an invisible talking stick that we pass, and I want to give it to you first, Elizabeth, so you can tell us about yourself and your work, and because you have a fascinating history here and a fascinating life. So, if you want to talk for about 10, 15 minutes, and then we'll interject with some questions. So, welcome to our show, Elizabeth Wilcock.
Thank you. Are we live now?
We are live, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, hello, everybody. So you want me to talk a little bit about my life, my history?
Yes, wherever you feel so moved to go, where you were born, how you got on your Priestess Path, how you got involved with the martial arts, Kung Fu, that's a fascinating. So you have the Priestess Path, which is like one arm in Kung Fu, but they of course merge, right? Because they're all about consciousness and spirituality. So if you want to explain that'd be great.
I got to know, the one thing that keeps going through my mind, are you David's bodyguard now instead of the guy with a gun?
We might still have the guy with a gun sometimes, but yes, I do function as his bodyguard at times. It's funny because when we go to conferences, when I walk into a room, I immediately suss everybody out. And I can tell after, a few minutes, who's who, what's going on. And I just have this innate, ingrained instinct to want to create order in spaces because of my years and years running martial arts schools and being trained by masters and grandmasters to be a good martial artist, and then also to maintain the dojo environment, which is very simple to a temple. So I equate the dojo to the temple, the priestess temple, a lot. So yeah, I have a knack for that. But we really put it into the hands of the divine, our protection, because it's really more than one could really do on one's own.
Of course, yes. So what got you started in martial arts? Because that's not a typical thing that sounds sexist. It's not really a typical thing for women to do, is go get black belts, although women do get black belts. But I saw in your class photo, you're the only woman and all these men, so.
I am I was oftentimes one of only a couple women, and really one of the only women that stayed with it for many, many years. But you basically have to marry it in some way in order to get as many black belts as I did, and then to become a master instructor. It has to be your life for decades. And it's kind of a long story getting to the martial art part, but as a child, I can hear somebody's papers shuffling around a little bit, so I don't know. One of you is doing that. And when I was a child, I was really sensitive, and I was seeing spirits. The spirits would come to me a lot when I was a child, so I knew that there was a spirit world. And I also had a lot of trauma in my childhood, which is probably one of the reasons why I was seeing into the spirit world, and they were seeing me, because I had a foot in both worlds, which often happens if you have a lot of trauma. Your soul distances itself from the third dimension and is existing a little more in the spirit dimension. And so because of that soul loss that I had, I developed a severe eating disorder in my teenage years that landed me in a hospital. And at the time, it was the first hospital really that they were treating eating disorders at. And they really didn't know what they were doing. So when I got out of that hospital, I was actually worse than when I went in. And I was already killing myself, going in. So I lied to my parents, and I went off to college. I was also a national track runner, so I was 5th in the Junior Olympics in the 400, and I was always very physically active. But when I hit my crisis point, at around when I was 18 and a half, I went off to college by myself, and I was binging and purging 5 times a day, and I was really driving myself into the ground. There was nobody there but me. And so I got really concerned. But I had read a book on shamanism when I was 17, just a little, about a year before. And upon reading that book on shamanism, I felt like I had found my family, my spirit family, because they talk about, seeing spirits and interacting with spirits and actually choosing to journey into the spirit world and working with spirit allies for healing. So there was a part of me that felt that maybe through something like that, I'd be able to heal my soul, because I couldn't do it through traditional Western medical, ways, psychologists and hospitals. So I prayed to Spirit, and I asked Spirit to help me heal. And then these shamanic workshops started coming into my life. I got introduced to the Foundation for Shamanic Studies. And so I began my shamanic training when I was 18 years old. And about a year later, I had a miraculous healing where the spirit brought my soul back into my body, the soul parts that had been distanced. And in a couple of months, I was no longer bulimic anymore. And it was at that point that I dedicated myself to the healing path. Now, because I had been a national track runner, I placed, I won the state meets in my state, and then I was in the Junior Olympics. Because I was so physically active, I really wanted to continue to be physically active, but I needed it to be spiritual somehow. And at 18 or 19, I didn't know much about anything. So I quit. I quit running. I quit lifting weights, and I vowed to myself that I would not begin training again unless it was very personal and unless it was healing and spiritual at the same time. And so it was really that commitment and choice that I made inside of myself that I believe spirit responded to years later after I spent 10 years practicing shamanism, training in shamanism, and I dedicated my life to it for 10 years. And after that, or like during that time, probably like 7 years into it, is when I got introduced to the martial arts. And it was actually through one of my shamanic paths that I got introduced to the martial arts. So that's when that thread began with me being able to marry my love for physical activity and my need to do something like very strong with my spiritual path. And, one thing led to another, and I ended up marrying a master instructor, an 8th degree black belt master instructor. And so at that point, then it really became all of my life. And so for 12 years or so, it was all that I did, all day long, basically. It was all martial arts. It was all qigong. And we had 5 schools, and we trained thousands of students and instructors. So that was a big chunk of my life. Shamanism is a really big chunk because it's how I healed my soul. And then I went deeply into that medicine and became a medicine carrier of those tools. And then I was led into the martial arts, which I feel was a dharma that I had, a dharmic commitment before coming into this life. And I delved very, very deeply into that. And I was trained by masters and grandmasters in, then the shamanic arts and the martial arts. And then also during that time is when I connected to the priestess arts. It was actually even before I got involved in the martial arts, I got involved in the priestess arts, and I became an initiated priestess. But I always kept it very, close to my heart. I didn't really announce it. I did the work, but I did the work if people could find out about me. I didn't do any advertising. So I call myself a closet priestess, and a closet shamaness. And I was that way for many years. So,
I have a question. If you want to finish your statement, then I have a question. You think
go ahead.
Well, I wanted to go back because he said something that really struck a familiar chord with me. I, too, was very open as a child to the spirit world, and they could see me seeing them. And I had, my own path with my mother was kind of schizophrenic and did strange, bizarre things to me that split me. But, the downside was pretty traumatic, but the upside was that it did open portals to other worlds, and ghosts were able to see me seeing them. I have worked with some people that have been out of body discardeds, and believe it or not, the dead need therapy as well as the living. And so go back to that. You said something about how that you want a distance from that. Could you repeat that? I should have taken notes, but I won't disorganize here right now.
You're saying, when I said that my soul distanced itself from the third dimension?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you're saying your soul, so there was something that split you.
Well, it's, trauma.
So you had some trauma-based...
my dear mother, she's wonderful now. She's a lot better now. And, I always attribute to like, wow, like having kids must be really, really stressful because it was pretty crazy there. And one of the reasons that I never was really attracted to having children because it was a war zone. It was a war zone. That's all I remember. And my brother was pretty violent as well, emotionally and physically. And so I was kind of sandwiched between these two violent energies and being an incredibly sensitive soul. And, I would pray for animals that I saw that were wounded. I would pray for bums on the street when I was only 3 years old. I was already really, really sensitive to the suffering of the world. So having those energies around me and then directed at me really, really made me not want to be here. And so what happens when you have trauma, whether it's emotional trauma, physical trauma, it could be a car accident, it could be falling off your bike, it could be being hit by somebody, it could be being yelled at very intensely by somebody. What happens is the soul, because our body is housing our soul, well, the soul doesn't want to be here for that. And so we begin to distance ourselves from our body and go off someplace that's safer in the spirit world. And this is called soul loss in shamanic terms. And the more trauma you have, the more soul loss you usually have, unless somebody who knows how to put you back together helps you do that. So in shamanic societies, people wouldn't have soul loss for very long because it would be recognized, and then the shaman would do the shamanic journey, and the tribe would pray and ask for the soul to come back, and they would want you to come back. So our Western society really doesn't even acknowledge that kind of thing, except they call it disassociation. So they do know that something happened due to trauma. So there's a lot of wounded people walking around with soul loss in the West that don't really understand what's going on or how to heal it. Luckily, it all somehow came to me. And I believe that when you're meant for something, the universe will bring it to you. And then you have a choice, do I choose to go this path or not? So I know for me that, shamanism, knowing that and going deeply, deeply into that practice and those lineages, that was really a part of my agreement. And honestly, without the trauma in my childhood, I seriously doubt I would have been driven to find these lineages that I apprenticed into and to find masters of these lineages, because I just don't think I would have had the impetus. If my life was good and I wasn't suffering, I think it would have been a very, very different life. Right. I would not be doing what I'm doing right now. And I probably wouldn't be with David either.
Right. So that's when you see there's divine perfection in everything, because you wouldn't have the reality you have now if everything didn't happen just the way it unfolded. So yeah. So my husband and I are psychotherapists, and we're trained in shamanistic practices. Dr. Lessin, you want to ask a question? You want to talk about your work with Stan Groff and a little bit share the different shamanistic paths?
I basically, there's no difference between the soul retrieval that you describe and what we do in in-depth psychotherapy with or without entheogens. It's the same path. It has different names in different quarters. And so one person's regression and past life explorations is another person. What happens is there's a resonance within you at any given time between the aspects of yourself and a past life that would have the same theme, or a archetypal story that you know of, or the way the universe functions, or the mind of God, because it's all resonating. And you can, once you allow a fluidity on the level of consciousness, like you said, how you got past third dimensional consciousness, so many people being raped or traumatized as a child will send their soul out on a tree outside, and all you got to do is go back and get them. And as far as your ancestral ones, what we do is we say to, I'm just named Alexander the what? Alexander the Great Killer. So I went to all the Persian people and all the people of Afghanistan and all the people of Egypt that Alexander killed, and I said, I'm so sorry for what my namesake did to you. I would like my soul fragments back from you, and I gave them the same opportunity. And so it is. The world can have a worldwide puja where you take back your soul fragments. Remember, there's nothing outside of you that isn't also inside of you. So if you come to peace within you, you can also be at peace with the world, I think.
Yeah.
Well, get back to you, Elizabeth.
Yes, I love how these old wisdom ways have found their way into the West. And I think it's really important that they do, that we weave the wisdom teachings and the lineage teachings into our now, and that's what I dedicated my life to, because I really didn't have, I kind of didn't have a choice, because if I was going to be a functional human being, I had to nourish the part of me that was really mystically oriented, and then with my physical movement, it also had to become mystically oriented. And qigong is the root of the martial arts, and that's what I really fell in love with, was the whole qigong aspect of it, the breath and the communion with the forces and the forces in the body, and alchemizing your inner state, filling yourself with power, the power of the life force energy. So I really enjoyed that. And then that was a long journey there. And then at a certain point in that journey, I knew that there was another journey I needed to go on. And I had to leave everything that I had built if I wanted to go on this next journey that was pulling my soul. And it was really the authentic Dharma that I came in for. And we have these choice points in our life sometimes, and you can feel them when they come around, because you'll usually be conflicted. And it says, well, you can stay with what you're doing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's also this whole other world that you can step into right now if you want to make that choice. And so I did make that choice, and it was a huge gamble, because I gave up everything when I left my martial art life and lifestyle. It was it's still functioning alive and well. I mean, it's like a whole entire kingdom, feudal kingdom from, the ancient days, still functioning. And in order for me to do my Priestess Path work and to hold my own temple, and then to go on this path and then to meet David, which I didn't know that was all in my future, but I had to leave everything, and I had not one promise of what was going to happen. So there was a great trust when I gave all of that up. And I've done this a few times in my life. I've given everything up, even my life. I've had 2 near-death experiences. And so I think because of my shamanic path, I have a faith in the higher power, because I've merged with the higher power, more than once. I chose to pierce the veil between the physical world and the spirit world numerous times. And so interact with my guides, my allies, know for myself who is God, what is God. I needed to know for myself. And so because of that journey, I have a trust. And I don't mind giving everything away every now and then, because there's an excitement there, because that's when spirit can really come in and form your life anew according to the divine plan. And so that's what eventually formed into the life that I'm living right now, where I have brought all of these wisdom teachings from the lineages that I committed my life to for the last 35 years. I brought all of that energy and all of those things into my own temple, because at a certain point in time, it's like, well, are you going to give this stuff back, or what are you going to do with it? You know, what do you do with all of these tools that you've learned, all of these healing tools, and all of this wisdom that you studied? So I created my Priestess Path temple, Priestess Path Lineages of Light, and I choose to initiate women into these sacred and mystic arts. And you know, and then I met David along this new path, and he's actually been in my life for quite a while, which is interesting. I have known of him for about 6 years, and then he and I got together. We began dating like 3 years ago, and then we got married a year and a half ago. So the funny thing is that you know, when I asked Spirit, I said, where do I need to go for this next portion of my life? And I got a very specific place along the Malibu coast, basically. And if you were to draw a line down from the house that we live in Topanga, down to the Malibu coast, you will basically get to exactly the point that I knew I had to go to. And this was 8-9 years ago now, almost 10 years ago. So it's really interesting how we're led in this life, and we're led to our Dharma. We're led to, you know, why we came here, what we're doing, and my life has been a series of those things, and it's been hard too. I've had a lot of dark nights of the soul. There's been a couple times I definitely didn't want to be here, and you know, there's other times too when I just have given it up, and I said, you know, well, I don't want to be here anymore. What do you want to do, Spirit? You know, because this isn't working for me, you know. So, that's where I'm at now.
That's where you're at now. So let's break that down a little bit. So you've had like different phases of your life. You had your childhood, you had your martial arts life, you had your shamanic life, and now you're in this new phase of your life. Let's go back to, how did you meet David? What was going on? So you knew of him, and I knew of Dr. Lessin before I met him. He was famous in his own right, you know, and so, you know, we're kind of similar in that way. So what was the magical...
Well, I didn't know... Yeah, I didn't actually know anything about David before I met him. So the first time that I ever was around David was at a party in Ojai, and it was at this big mansion in Ojai. And Ojai is where I landed after I got to, you know, divorced my ex-husband, and I left everything, and I just said, Spirit, guide me. You know, there's another phase of my life, and I'm ready for that. A few months into that, I ended up in Ojai. So there was this party at this mansion in Ojai, and all these people were saying, David Wilcock's here, David Wilcock's here, and I don't know who David Wilcock is at all. And they were saying stuff about him, you know, and I said to myself, I said, you know what? I am definitely not going to meet this guy, because I'm not going to be one of those people that wants to meet him just because there's this buzz about him. So I didn't even look at him. Like there was this like big group around him in the kitchen and everything, and part of me was just like, you know, like I'm not interested in that type of thing, fame or anything like that. So it kind of turned me off, not to him, but I didn't want to be one of those people standing around him, you know, listening that way. So, so that's the first time I ever knew of him. And I didn't know anything about his work. I really didn't know anything about what he did. Because that particular mansion in Ojai, they brought a lot of people in there, you know, Barbara Mark Hubbard, and they always featured a lot of really interesting people there, and that I knew nothing about. Because I had basically been cloistered for many, many years, because when I trained in shamanism, I lived out in the country, and I didn't live in cities for a long time. And then when I was in the martial arts, that's all I did. So I didn't know anything else. I wasn't I wasn't on YouTube, and we didn't have YouTube, you know, back then. I wasn't reading other people's books. I was deeply, deeply immersed in my own lineage, if you will. So I didn't know anything about this whole group that I'm now involved in, which would be, I guess, like the spiritual UFO disclosure community. I knew nothing about it. So I didn't know anything about David. So, and he was also with a woman too, and so it wasn't like there was nothing there. But we had a mutual best friend, which is interesting. So a girlfriend of mine's son, who I became very close with, happened to be like best friends with David. And so there was always that connection. And then son, the funniest story is the very first time David and I actually met, my girlfriend's son, who had a room in David's house, because she's this traveling hippie, and she had a room there. And she told me one time, she said, you know what, you should just go over to David's. Here's the address. Just tell him that I said it was okay to stay in my room. It's no big deal. I think I was probably coming back from the airport or something, and she just said, oh, you can stay in my room if you want to for the night. So I'm like, okay, whatever. So I said, oh, this should be interesting. So I drive up. He lives at the very top of this big hill and everything, and I get to the gate, and I ring the gate, and I'm like, hi, this is my name's Beth, and son sent me. She said I could, stay in her room tonight. And David's like, okay. He wasn't expecting me at all. He had no idea. So actually the first time that David and I met, I literally came to his front door, and he opened his front door, and there I was. Now that was still a couple of years, maybe 2 or 3 years before we ever started dating. So we talked, and we got along very well talking, but I honestly didn't I didn't say, wow, he's really amazing, I'd like to date him, or anything. Because he was best friends with one of my girlfriends. I mean, he's that kind of guy that can be friends with girls. That's really cool. Right. You know what I mean? That's what I thought about him, and wow, what a brilliant mind. It's very nice to speak to somebody with such a brilliant mind. And so I, stayed in the bedroom that night. He was upstairs, like nothing, there was nothing at all between us. He was actually attracted to me, but I didn't know that. And I left, I left the next day, and I saw him, once on his 40th birthday. I was invited to his 40th birthday party, and then I didn't see him for a couple years. There were every now and then. The funny thing was, every now and then, it was like we would cross paths. We would end up, maybe once or twice a year, we would end up crossing paths because we had mutual friends and things. So we were around, And David says that one of the main reasons that he even thought about me when he decided that it was time for him to meet his beloved, he said he knew that it had to be somebody that was already in his life, because for him, he had already gained a certain level of notoriety that he felt there's no way that he could do like Match.com or Facebook or just date some girl that he meets at a conference. He was beyond that. So when he thought about who could it be that has to be in my life, I came up and he said, the one thing that really stuck out was during all the time that I knew him, I never tried to access him. I never tried to become his friend. I never tried to get him to make me famous. I never tried to access anything about him whatsoever. And so that was really refreshing to him, because most people that he meets tries to get something out of them. And it's just human nature. It's just the way that it is. Because, people see him, they're like, oh, wow, I want him to carry my product. I want him to put me on stage. I want him to write an article about me. Because if he does, you become the next big thing, if he puts enough energy behind you. So a lot of people try to access that in him. So anyway, that's basically how I met David. But it wasn't until, really my father died. And my father, I think it was part of my father's last task that he did for me after he died, was to connect me to my beloved, because I actually asked that of my father because I helped my father die. And
wow.
He wasn't expecting that. He was expecting to die alone, but in the end, he was very, very grateful that he didn't have to do that alone, because that was a big thing for him to navigate. He had never talked about death, and we never talked about his death, you know?
Yeah.
And he was a very strong man of the 60s, and I just knew, I'm like, he doesn't want to bother anybody with this, and he just wants to do this alone. But I have had all the shamanic training, you know, all the priestess training, and I'm thinking to myself, that's where I definitely want to be with my dad, you know? That's probably the first time he's ever going to know who his daughter is. So
wow, that's
it
wonderful.
It all did happen. I was so blessed to be able to be there with my father during those final days of his life and help him navigate that situation. And so he came to me 3 days after he died. I was in his house.
Did too. Go ahead.
Yeah.
We might hit the break here, so if we do, we'll just continue. But
okay.
Go ahead and start.
It's a good
came
time.
to you 3 days after he died? Okay, well, we have no control. The music comes on when it comes on. Go ahead. He came to you. Uh-huh.
Yeah, he came to me. I was in his house because that's where I had been. I'm helping him in his final days. And so there's this bright, shimmering light that comes dancing light. And it was so happy. It was so joyful. And I just knew it was my dad. And I said, Dad, I'm so glad that you're in a good space.
Hold that thought. Okay.
All right.
We'll be back in about 4 minutes.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Or be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. Countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
It happens more often than we can imagine. In my case, I was sitting at home, and out of nowhere, I just started feeling uncomfortable. Then it got worse, and I started perspiring. I tried to ignore it, but I waited too long. The chest pain came as we were driving to the hospital emergency. I felt my life clock begin to tick. I barely survived. There was lots of damage done to my heart. What do I do now? I was lucky. I took a leap of faith and tried a 7-herb formula with hawthorn, garlic, cayenne, and more called Extendivite. Herbs have been used for thousands of years to keep us healthy. If you're not using Extendivite as a preventative supplement, maybe it's time to start. To order, call 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome back to Stargate to the Cosmos. And I'm your host, Janet Karen Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alec Lessin. And our producer is Thomas Becker, and this is Revolution Radio. And our guest is David Wilcock. But before we get back to our show, because we're kind of dangling in the middle of a story there, we're going to go over to, we want you to go over, we hoping that you will go over and please donate on revolution.radio, because we need your donations. We are listener supported. And we really need to raise our funds up a little bit more than we have thus far. Matt Painter, Thomas Becker, where are we in our fundraising? How are we doing?
Well, we got 14.15. We still need 11.35. We hadn't had donations since Thursday. Come on, people.
Come on, people.
We need your help.
Yes, we had a rough month with the server down, a new server, and all that good stuff. So please, please, please. So, Dr. Lessin, would you like to say anything before we bring back on Elizabeth?
Yes, indeed. Elizabeth brings forth the idea of basically the perennial philosophy that people of every tradition ultimately, when they go inward deeply enough, come up with, that you can transcend levels of consciousness by including more and more within your self-sense. And that's what the changes that you talk about, Elizabeth. Suddenly, when you die to a way of life, it's not that it's dead, it's just that it's you're going to incorporate it into something bigger. And that's the unique combination that only Elizabeth could do, because you're the only one that's you. And you've transcended a level, and it's really exciting to hear you go through your changes.
Yeah. So what message did your dad have for you? We were hanging on that one when we went to the break.
Yeah, so I spoke to him, and it wasn't that much. It felt like he had come to show me that he was okay, and he was really excited that there was life after death. I just don't think that he wasn't allowing himself during his life to really think about that much. Again, he was a man of the 60s. He was a banker, and he was just very conservative. And so he was sharing his joy, in his spirit. His spirit was just dancing full of light. So I said to my dad, I said, I'm just so happy that you're in a good place, and that you're, with the angels. And I said, maybe now that you're on the other side, you can help me with something. Maybe you can help connect me with my beloved. Because, my dad kept, telling me, because I had been single for a while, after my first, marriage ended. And, I was always, we always knew I'm meant for somebody, but I also had a really hard time finding David, and it felt like a hard time, which is kind of funny because he was in my life. That was the funniest thing.
Right.
But he and I hadn't made that connection yet. Anyway, so I asked my dad if he could do that, and the funny thing is, about a week later, David texted me, and he asked me if I wanted to meet him at Contact in the Desert. For a weekend, he was going to be there, and he was going to be doing his stuff and everything, and I thought, oh my gosh, yes, I definitely need a break. My dad had just died, and we were dealing with his estate, and I was there with my brother, and my brother is, kind of scary if you stay with him for too long. And so I definitely needed a break. And so I went to Contact in the Desert, and that's when we knew. It was the very first day, because David and I had never spent time really alone together, in a space where, like, he was free, I was free, and we were both ready for our beloved, and we had made that commitment. So, like, that commitment was inside of us. And I think David invited me because he just wanted to see, like, he'd never spent time with me like that.
Wow.
And we knew within the first few hours. It just kind of dawned on us.
Was there a moment, was something that happened that you felt that spark, and that you knew that was your beloved?
Yeah. He had, I think he had done a panel that day, and so I got to see him on stage, and that was really neat to see him talk. I got to see him talk for the first time, and he's brilliant in front of an audience. It's just amazing. And later, so we go home, and then so he gets out his guitar, and he starts singing all of these beautiful songs to me, just, some love songs. And so he kind of serenaded me. And I just was like, what a charming man. I mean, there's so much love in him, and he's such a neat guy. I'd never really been able to see that part of him. And then that night, we saw a UFO. We call it the Blue Blinker. Out there, and so we had gone outside to see the Blue Blinker, and there it was, kind of just moving around in the sky, this way and that way and everything. And David was laying down in the hammock, and I just felt like laying next to him, because I hadn't, it's just kind of nice if you can cuddle with somebody. I thought, he can do that. He's best friends with my girlfriend, like he'll probably be okay if I ask him if I can just lay in the hammock with him. And So I asked him, I said, do you mind if I lay in the hammock with you? And he was like, okay. So I laid there, and, and then I was able to tune into his soul, because I can tune into people's souls really well. And it was really surprising, because he was very, very grounded, and he wasn't trying anything on me. He was just totally solid in his energy. And I thought that maybe he would be very airy-fairy and not really present in his body because he's so intellectual and maybe flighty or something. But he actually had a very, very strong, like, Rock of Gibraltar kind of feeling in his soul. And that was really comforting to me, and to feel that. Because I've been alone for a long time and, not able to find anybody that felt solid to me. And it was really sweet to feel. And we just knew. It was after he sang those songs to me, and as I was listening to him, the thought was going through my mind, this is it. Like, this is the one, You guys are gonna get married, you get everything. Like, I could just see it all. And he could too, he knew.
And that's always so magical. We've done years couples counseling, and when we get to the point where it's appropriate, we go back to, when did you know that you were going to end up with each other? And sometimes it's a different time for each person, and it's interesting when they share that. They go, sometimes it's the same moment. Sometimes it's like, the one was first and the other one was like, dealing with it, and then, but there is that point where you just really fall in love and you go, oh, this is the person I want to spend my life with, and it's always so magical. Yeah. I love these stories. I was at UFO Congress when we were inside and we saw Richard Dolan proposing to his beloved. And then we're going, what's going on? They were up by the fireplace. It was very romantic. And we were inside, and then someone took a picture from inside while they were, and it was actually the exact moment he pulled out the ring. And then they came walking in the door. We were the first people that they saw. And they said, "We just got engaged," And so it's really sweet to see people that are very well known, and I'm sure they feel isolated. How am I going to make this happen, right? And then when they find that divine beloved, it's just so it's so beautiful. It's so sweet. Yeah.
What's that?
For me, it happened when after we connected and we didn't use protection, and we both said, "Hey, if we make a baby, that's cool." I knew I wanted to be with you, babe.
Oh, thank you, honey. Yeah, we kind of went a little bit fast, but I think I knew before then. It's just there was a point. Like,
how long have you guys been married?
23 years. Well, going on 23. Yeah. But it goes really fast. Yeah. So we've grown old together. We're old now.
Yeah.
But, and this wasn't our first, it was our third marriage. So I've been before. And we both had the childhood marriage where you're really young and, what you're doing. Right. And then there was one.
Skipped that
this
one.
is going to be it. Yeah. Well, you were smarter than I was.
I did that. Yeah. I did that middle marriage. I skipped the childhood marriage, and then I did the middle marriage, and then I've done I'll grow old with this one marriage.
That's sweet. That's sweet. Yeah. So, wow. And then, so now you're developing as a power team, and you're presenting together. And and I wish I could be there. We've gone to all the contact in the desert, but I'm old now. I'm recovering from an illness, and I didn't buy any tickets. I didn't make any plans because I didn't know how long it was going to take. But it looks like I'm going to be okay, But I'll probably get out in the fall again because we usually do the circuit. And so I may have met you. You look familiar. Now that you're saying when you came, that was one of the last ones where it was in the Joshua tree, right? I think I remember seeing you.
Yes. It was the last. Was it the last one? Maybe it was the second to last one. I can't remember.
Second to last one, I remember talking to somebody around the registration area.
Twice. So I've been with David twice when it was in the desert. When it was still in the desert, and then so last year
in the hotel. So this will be my 4th year at Contact in the Desert. So this is our, I guess it's kind of our 3rd anniversary, but it's our 4th Contact in the Desert. And he and I, we haven't presented on stage yet. He and I are actually going to present on stage on this one because at first I was just going to do it myself, which I'm fine doing. I have no problem presenting on stage myself, but then they put me up against his name now, of course, his name is going to escape me, but he's like super famous. He's like the guy, Eric Von Daniken.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, Eric Von Daniken. And so I was like, I'm thinking like, I want to go see Eric Von Daniken. And I told the guys, I said, nobody's going to come to my thing, if like I don't get some help here. And so David is going to present with me just because they put me up against these heavy hitters that I figured, well, I'll be talking to my mom, my stepdad, and like the 2 friends that they're bringing but now it's me and David. Yeah. And me up there. So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we presented together too. So sometimes they like having couples. So that's good. That's good. So you won't be, and you probably wouldn't have been anyway. I know people think that, but there's always people that say, well, I've already seen that one and that one. I want to go see somebody new. Right. So there's always some people that are going to come, even though you might not have people, out the door, but you still, it's such
listen, your intention is manifest in your, in your behavior. You chose to be a presenter together. That's what you chose. Yeah. Get it? Yeah, that's what I get.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's in 2 weeks.
Well, I've wanted to
one day.
present with him. Yeah. In 2 weeks and 1 day?
14 hours, 43 minutes and 56 seconds.
I'm really excited. We're going to have a great time. I'm excited to be there. It's always a wonderful conference.
Now, this is a large audience.
What is the presentation? What's the title? What's it about?
Yeah, let's pull that up.
It's called ETs, the Divine Feminine, and Ascension. And how they all relate together.
Have you seen, and we're getting feedback, have you seen any ETs? I know you've seen ghosts, but have you seen ETs?
I have. Mm-hmm.
Tell us about that. Because I have. I've seen everybody. But go ahead. What have you seen?
I've had a couple defining experiences. So I haven't seen a lot of them, but I've seen them. So the first defining experience that I had with that was, I was just beginning to work with crystals, and I'd gotten this Herkimer diamond, and I had heard that, the Herkimer diamond is really good for your journey in sleep states and things, and I was really excited about that. And I had fallen asleep on the floor with this Herkimer diamond, and I had this whole entire experience where I was brought onto a ship, and the little gray guys were there, but they didn't scare me. It didn't feel intimidating or threatening or anything. They were kind of about my size, maybe a little smaller, and I just had a vision of it, and I didn't see all of it. I don't know if maybe stuff happened that I don't remember, all that. Mm-hmm. And then I came back into my body, and I thought, wow, I was 18 at the time, and so I was excited about all of that. I was just entering into my spiritual path, like my path as an adult. And I had, it was the summertime. I had done 1 year at college, and I went back to Colorado, where I was from, for that summer. And I was living with really one of my first teachers, Ann and Art Bartelt, and she was a channel, and she channeled in Sanat Kamara and the Ashtar Command and all this stuff, and she did tarot readings, and it was so exciting to me, this whole world that I wanted to so deeply explore. And so that experience happened during that time. And then I had a major sighting experience where I saw the ships, but I didn't see the beings in the ships. And this was when I was 21 years old, I believe. Yeah, 21 years old. My boyfriend and I, at the time,
we were traveling across country, and we had just left Reno, Nevada, and it was like 1 a.m., so we were in Reno for whatever reason. We didn't want to stay in Reno. I think it was just too janky for us. We didn't want to stay there. We were like, let's go find another town that's so more quiet. So we're driving outside of Reno, and it's probably like, 30 minutes outside of Reno, 40 minutes or something. And there's, it's a lonely highway. There's nothing around. We come up this little hill, and as we come up the hill, I see far off to the right these 3 incinerator flames, like the flames that they're burning oil or something. And as we come up this bend, each flame goes out one by one. One flame goes out. The next flame goes out. The next flame goes out. And it's pitch black. And I said, incinerator flames don't go out like that. They go out in a different way. So it was already weird the way that they went out. And we're driving along, and about a minute passes, and I'm looking out the passenger window up in the sky, and I'm like, whoa, you got to stop. You have to stop. So we stop, we get out, and we're on the road. And up in the sky, there are about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's about 6 UFOs, unidentified flying objects. They were white-ish, luminescent. They were round. They were doing maneuvers that were far, far beyond anything a human could survive in without massive technology that we don't know if we had. This was 1990, or something, 91. And they were making very, very sharp turns, like 180-degree turns within like not even a second. And nothing can do that. They were making these turns, and they were popping out these beautiful white lights in symmetry. They were doing these maneuvers. They'd switch over to one part of the sky, and then one at a time, one would traverse the sky. It would pop out these 3 lights. Boom, boom, boom. One big, one medium, one small, and they were beautiful. And then the next one would come, and it would do the same thing in perfect symmetry. And then the next one would come, and it would do the same thing. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing, that they're putting on a light show for us. And we watched that for about 15 minutes, and then all at once, they all shot from the left part of the sky, and they were gone. And literally like that. They shot off like that. Whoa. And so I'm sitting there going, whoa, that's just the most amazing thing, I've ever seen. Totally life-changing. I hadn't doubted that there were ETs, but, that was the first time I ever really saw something like that. And then the interesting thing is not one car passed us on this highway during this entire time, by the way. So it was like there, and this whole thing went on there's more to the story that I'm getting to, because it goes on for about 30 minutes, and not one time did another car come. So now I'm standing on the highway, and because I had been looking off to the right in the sky, the night sky, and now they're gone. But now that I'm standing on the highway, I look across to the left and out into the desert, and about a mile out of the desert, there is a congregation of these things that I thought were incinerator flames, these triangular, orange, reddish colored lights that did not illuminate the space around them. They were self-illuminated, but nothing illuminated around them. And there was a congress of them. There was about 25 of them out there, and they were different sizes. They weren't all the same size. And there was a hum to it. I could hear a vibrational hum coming from them. So I crossed the highway, and it's a 2-lane highway. I go from the left side of the highway to the right side of the highway. And just in that short distance that I went, there was a force field that I knew if I stepped even 3 steps further off of that highway and onto the dirt toward those ships that were out there a mile away, that I would hurt my body. that there was something about the vibration that would not be good for me, and it was just a deterrent. But the funny thing was, I was standing there, and I was like sending out in my thoughts, like, we come in peace, you know, we mean no harm. Like, you know, I'm 20 years old, like sending out these like thoughts to the ETs that like I come in peace, you know, it's just really funny. Right. So anyway, they sat out there. I mean, we kind of got bored with it because after about 30 minutes of the whole thing, it's like, well, I mean, you can't go out there because your body's going to get hurt, and they're gone in the sky. So we just drove to the nearest town. And the next morning, did any cars
start up again while you were staring at them across the field, or was you still alone?
It wasn't until we had driven further, that probably another few miles, that we saw another car. Now, this was the road leading out of Reno to, going east out of Reno. So I don't know, like, it seems like there should have been more cars on that road at 2 a.m., but I don't know. And we got to a small hotel. We stayed in the hotel that night. And in the morning at breakfast, I asked the waitress, I said, do you guys get a lot of UFO sightings around here? And the strangest thing was she said no. And I was thinking, this is like in the middle of the Nevada desert. Are you sure? I mean, what I just saw, if those guys are out there, you know, like oftentimes, I mean, that, I've never heard of anybody describe them quite like that before. And that was the most massive sighting I'd ever seen.
Well, that reminds me of what John Mack shared. This woman, he had her come up on stage, and it's almost like he shifted dimensions, you know, because there were no cars. And now I had one like that too, where there were crickets, you know, making noise, and then all of a sudden the crickets stopped and the cars stopped. Did you notice any like normal desert sounds that they stop as well? I guess you wouldn't have birds in the middle of the night, but maybe.
I don't remember any sounds at all, actually. No sounds, except that the humming of the ships that I tuned into after their aerial light show thing ended. And that was the only other sound I was aware of during that time. Well, and then of course, like if I tell that story to David or something, he's like, "Oh, they probably, you know, portaled you out and ported you back in, and you were gone," and you know, all this stuff.
Well, that's what I was thinking, that you went into a dimension shift because, you know, same thing happened to me. I was about 12, and there were no insect sounds. I lived on a busy street. There was a bus that came by. None of the buses came by. No other cars came by. And you're just describing almost the same thing. Like you had a sense there were other cars. As soon as you got through with this episode, there were other cars, even though it was 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it's like everything started back up again. So
back to normal. Yeah,
that was just really, really weird. It's like they stopped time, I guess, maybe.
I always do this for my poor husband, but if you ever want to do a hypnosis session, we can even do it by phone. I'd love to, we'd love to facilitate you to help you get more memories. We don't ever lead the witness, or we just facilitate. Yeah, go ahead, Henry.
For one thing, you can see immediately that your intention was to open your reality to a felt reality that was deeper than you had before. Before it was intellectual, and what this did, it opened a huge door for you. If I get you right.
That was a really powerful time of my life. That the years from 18 to 22, those were my major initiatory years. I mean, that's when I went into shamanism. That's when the spirits began initiating me, a whole nother aspect of interacting. Not just, they weren't the dead spirit. I used to see dead spirits all the time, right? But now these were like archangels and ancient shamanesses and things, you know. It was a whole different class of spirits that were coming to me during that time. And that's when I healed bulimia. That's when I saw my first UFOs and aliens. And it was a really exciting time in my spiritual path. Those few years, it was very exciting. Yeah.
Wow.
So, so what's really interesting in psychotherapy, we would take the part that you're calling bulimic or a food addict, and we'd say, what is it that you really contributed to her? And it usually is. That's the magic. If you could find out what that is, you're free.
Oh, that's a nice way to frame it. I've never heard anyone ask it that way before. I think it was a brilliant tool to really get my soul on deep mystic paths that my soul yearned to be on. Here's the interesting thing. Maybe you'll appreciate this, Doctor, because I made a choice. It was at around 14 years old. When I was 14, I yearned for initiation from a wise woman, but there were no wise women. There were no priestesses. There were no shamanesses. There were no wise women medicine carriers. But I yearned to be taught from a woman like that about my body, about my spirituality, and there was nothing around. And I remember being 14 and saying, how am I going to become the woman I want to become? Because I need initiation. I need grit. I need depth. And what is going to give me that? And I remember making a soul choice. I agreed to it, to have some sort of challenge that was big enough that forced me to dig deep, deep, deep into my soul and to find these medicines and to find these realities that, for whatever reason, I needed to connect with them. So when I was 14, I made that decision, and a few months later, I became bulimic. It came into my life. I was taught how to do it from a home economics video. And I just find it really interesting. Have you ever heard of that, Dr. Sasha? People choosing?
Yes. This is, I've heard very, very similar stories. It's, you found, if I was going to abstract it enough, you found that you could, by bodily associations, alleviate your anxiety. And once you get to that core, I can alleviate my own anxiety, and then you have a whole bunch of different ways of doing it. But so you got to the basis of it. What can I do to make this part of me okay? And then what you have now, of course, is because of your meditation, is a fair witness that says the situation in which I now exist, my context, my ecology, has changed, and I have more options.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. So that was a very rich time. The time I was seeing the UFOs too. I saw some later too. I haven't seen them for a while. The blue blinker. That contact in the desert a few years ago was the most recent one. It wasn't as dazzling as the other ones, but it was still there.
It was still there, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I find it interesting now that I'm with, I'm in this community, guys. I was never really, even though I had these UFO experiences, that didn't become my defining interest at all. Mm-hmm. I was like, yes, of course there's ET. It's like, can you just help us clean up the trash in the oceans or something? Like, we need a lot of help, So I just never thought to make that at all part of my platform or what I do. And it's still really not. I focus on the mystic stuff. I focus on the priestess stuff, the divine feminine, and really speaking to the sacred warrior. That's pretty much the main part of my narrative, is wanting to initiate and inspire sacred warriors on this planet to preserve and protect the innocence, the beauty, the animals, the elements of this incredibly gorgeous, amazing earth that we live on. So that's what I have done with my life. And to me, like UFOs and aliens, it's like, oh yeah, sure, they're here. It doesn't, it's like, okay, let's move on.
Well, we're living in these times where, we're losing wildlife, species at an alarming rate, and we have extreme pollution. And so what would you, on your path, what are some of the things that we can do? What are things that you're hoping to do, inspire people to, do something to correct this? Well, it's alarming.
It is alarming. And I've always been very sensitive to it. As a child, I would cry for the whales. I could feel the whales in the ocean being sad. I mean, I could feel their sadness as a child, and I would cry about them. When I first became aware of what was happening to dolphins and baby seals, that they bludgeon them, I mean, I was like, what kind of planet have I found myself on? These people are crazy. And that's basically what I've always felt about humanity from the time I was 3 years old, and I saw cars and strip malls and concrete and pollution. I thought, these people do not know how to live in harmony with this planet. So I've always wanted to do something about it. To me, that's the greatest suffering that I see, the suffering that we are giving to the animals, that we are killing these creatures in the oceans, that we don't even care. That our government, blasts sonar down in the ocean and it just bursts the whales and the dolphins, and nobody cares. They don't care. They don't care that we're poisoning our genetic food supply. They don't care that we've poisoned our rivers. So it's like that element has always been what I've wanted to somehow change. It's very interesting that that's what David is doing too, at the core of it, that dark element on the planet. And so I went through these lineages, through the shamanic lineage, through the martial art lineage, the sacred warrior lineage, the priestess lineage. I went through these. I did 70 ayahuasca journeys, in order to gain the understanding and the wisdom of what can be done. Not only with myself, how can I heal myself? Because I was a product of this sick world, I was a product of being disassociated from nature, disassociated from my body. And so what I've chosen to do out of everything that I could possibly do right now is to communicate a message of inspiration to people and to inspire people to have a stand in this life, to make a stand, a stand for the sacred. And that's what I say all the time, make a stand for the sacred. I initiate women into making a stand for the sacred, into being conduits of the divine feminine energies, because so I was visited 8 years ago by the Golden Goddess, and she brought me into her ranks and her fold, and she gave me my marching orders, and she said, the earth is suffering from a lack of positive feminine energy, from a lack of nurturing, from a lack of the compassionate feminine healing dew that only the feminine energy carries. Now, men and women both have feminine energy. And so, but the earth is, see, the lack of feminine compassion for our animals, we're killing them. We just decimate them. Who cares? The lack of feminine compassion and honor. I'm not speaking for me. I'm speaking for, of course, this element that is embedded in our world. And like, for the plants, and we're changing the genetic God code. So I've decided to use my voice. I've decided to create a temple space for women, to initiate women into being sacred warrior goddess medicine carriers, having a sacred stand on this earth and affecting everything around them. Because if I can inspire hundreds or thousands of women to create sacredness in their life, then they create sacredness in their beloved's life, in their children's life, in their family's life, in the life of their community. And maybe that way that we anchor in the sacred, saying, to the negative energies that want to rape and pillage this earth, thou shalt not pass. No, we've had enough of you. We're not into that. Here, you're going to honor this space. Here, you're going to honor nature. Here, you're going to honor the animals. And if every woman on the planet said that, we'd have a very different planet.
Right. Well, we're definitely way out of balance. The patriarchy, dominator consciousness is just taken over. And I think half of it is that women do have to rise up and take our place in partnership as equals and don't allow anything else to get in that way, showing up as equals. So that's why I really appreciate that what you're doing is, David's already made his path, but you're showing up as equals on the stage together, and now you've got this incredible platform. How are you integrating your work together? You're developing a program together. How are you integrating your work together? That's probably a process, an interesting process. But have you figured out what you're doing?
Strengths are. Yeah, I really bring a lot of the grounded ceremonial ritual practices in, and David brings a lot of the brilliant intellectualism, the philosophy, the law of one, the science, that type of thing. So he's got the mind, and I like grounded into the earth as a practice. So we are probably going to do a course together. He just got done with his Ascension Mystery School, and the next time we do it, I'll probably share in that mystery school what I share in my Priestess Path, which are the grounded spiritual practices and tools of the spiritual warrior. And so we find that we have complements that way. And on stage, it'll be interesting because this will be the first time that we're going to co-teach something on stage. But, when I get stuck somewhere, I can't remember a fact or a name, I can ask him. He always remembers those things. And this will be the first time at Contact in the Desert that we're going to share the stage like that. So we'll figure it out there, how we go with that particular flow. But it'll be interesting because I've chosen basically a divine feminine, narrative. But he has a lot to say about that. He has a lot to say about the divine feminine and ascension. And so it'll be fun to see how we do it together there.
Yeah, very interesting. Sasha, you have a question or feedback or comment?
Yeah, indeed. In terms of the effect of inspiring, I find you very, very inspiring. I feel really moved. I love what you're saying. And if I can just put it in the perspective of my discipline, as a professional anthropologist, one of the last civilizations after the up-leveling of Sodom and Gomorrah and the spread, there was still a lot of the old Nimrod area where the goddess was worshipped, where the towns were not walled, where women had partnership or highest positions. There were no slaves. There were no armaments. And this came to a height in the Minoan Empire where that was the last. It was peaceful. Then after the Mycenaeans came in, that's Marduk and Zeus and his boys, it was slavery, it was armament, it was walled cities, it was massacres, and that is the difference in it. And it's the reintegration of the feminine that is utterly critical. Without partnership, we're all dead.
Exactly, and that is the message for Ascension, because we aren't gonna have a future if we don't reintegrate the feminine.
Right.
We aren't going to have one. You're going to have to go live on Mars. Good thing they're trying to figure out how to do that. Because if you don't reintegrate the feminine, that is where humanity is going to have to go to live. The moon and Mars. And this Earth is already gorgeous. It's already perfect. It's already in just perfect harmony if you just leave her alone. Just leave her be. And
put your you go to the beach, dig your feet in up to the ankles and feel the pulse of the earth. Stand barefoot on the roots of a tree where it goes into the earth and feel your contact. Let the earth vibrate you and go through your chakras and see what messages you get.
Yeah, that's a good thing to leave everybody with there as a practical practice. And that's why I love qigong too, because qigong is meant to be done plugged into the earth. You literally plug your body into the earth, and you connect your energetic meridians to that informing, intelligent vibration that's coming out of the earth, and then the earth speaks to you. And then on ayahuasca, I'll tell you what, then you know exactly how the earth speaks to you, because when you open your consciousness to the spirit world like that, I remember when I realized I put my hand on the earth and I saw her energy coming to meet me, and I felt the heart energy of the earth like coming into my body in this amazingly beautiful, supportive, nurturing way, and I just, that's the beauty of these medicines sometimes, because you realize the amazing magic of the world that we live in. It's so conscious, and the nature is so willing to help us and interact with us, and those are the things that I want to keep alive on the planet. If I can do something with my life, it's to continue to keep the sacred alive, and that we don't forget it as we continue into this technological age and continue with this momentum that we have, that I really don't know if we are going to stop polluting this planet. It would take a huge change of government, and I don't think that I honestly do not think that people can cooperate that much. It's very hard for people to cooperate anywhere. Yeah. And so, I honestly, and this has always been a conundrum for me my whole life. I've always felt that we're just going to keep going. But there are other powers. That's where the whole ET thing comes in, because, maybe they will intervene at one point when it's just like, no, we're not going to let you guys destroy it like this,
Yeah, we've got to reverse the course of things. I've interviewed a lot of people, and I've had some people on recently that said that there are the technologies to reverse this and regenerate our planet and turn it pristine, but the governments and powers that be are just not letting us come forth. But there's some indicators that things are about to shift, and that's why I hope I was at contact. But I keep getting all this information, and other whistleblowers are coming forth, and so I do see us going into an age of cooperation. It's like we're witnessing our birth pangs. And like you, I've done a lot of shamanic journeying, so has Dr. Lessin. And I've seen magical, mystical things. I often would travel out in space in my shamanic journeys and open stargates and portals and things like that. And I connected in my journeys with Nimba, and integrated with Nimba, the mother goddess Nimba. She's the creator goddess. And so you identified with the golden goddess. Who is the golden goddess? Does she have a name? Or she just known as the
golden goddess to me.
Golden goddess.
It was, I'm not sure exactly, because as far as the goddesses go, I think she's just, who knows? But she's this amazing, beautiful, golden energy, and she brought me into this, it was almost like a spiritual tribe. And so I really don't know, but there's something about it. I think she's definitely an aspect of the goddess, if not the way that the goddess, the eternal goddess, chose to manifest herself to me at that time. So some of those things.
Did you have any other deep and profound experiences on your journeys that you'd like to share with our audience? Just a couple.
Yeah. Wait.
Okay, wait. What do you want, Sasha?
Look, if you were to think right now, image of the golden goddess, and you were to enter behind her eyes, and so you could perceive yourself in the world from golden goddess, what are you like and what do you perceive?
Yeah, she's
It's
witnessing
being
the
myself.
earth. Mm.
Yes, when you are that golden goddess, yes.
She's the feminine aspect of creation, and I'm a representative of her. I'm in her chart. I'm one of her warriors. I'm one of her on this planet, and I've through my experiences, I know that I'm one of the members of the angelic legions of light, if you will. Like my soul family are these light beings, and I think that a lot of us are, but I guess some people, they have different tribes, different tribes that they're from, even in the spirit world. And so my tribe is these golden legions of light, and so I'm one of the warriors in that, and this is the way that I've chose to express my love and my protection for that which is beautiful here on earth, and through the feminine energies, through bringing back the empowered and noble and compassionate and nourishing aspects of the feminine and the fierce boundary aspects of the feminine at the same time, because without fierce boundaries, then the animals and the earth are raped and pillaged, and that's not okay. So we have to also bring in that warrior stance that says you will act in an honorable way here. You do not pillage and plunder this space. That's why we have to have the spirit of the sacred warrior, because if we do not, things just keep going the way they are, and it's not going in a good way, because the inferior energies of humanity have been allowed to take root here, which they should never have been, but they did, and that's like a whole other story. So this is a time. There's a great standoff going on right now. There's a lot of polarization in the spirit world and here on this world, and so this is the place where we prove who we are. Who are you? Are you a warrior? Do you make a stand? Or do you just go with the flow? Or are you actually a problem? Are you a negative troll on Facebook? Do you commit your life to being a negative person and to hating people? Because we see that in our community. We know David is the brunt of those attacks. We see people who have dedicated their entire life to hating David Wilcock. Really? Like, is there nothing better that you can do on planet Earth? If you want to be such a noble person, why don't you go do something noble? Why don't you be something so interesting that you get attention for that, rather than be something so hateful that you just get the ambulance chasers, So I call out to the sacred warrior, and I make a stand, and the people around me know that, and it's for real. And so that's what my message is, and that's what I go forth, inside of my relationship with David and in this community and on the stages that we speak on. While there's UFOs and while there's, technology and all this stuff, it really is going to require the stance of the sacred warrior, honoring and returning the energies of the divine feminine to this planet in order to make all that work.
Awesome. I agree. So the individual can do something. They don't have to show victim. They can start with themselves. And if they start making a change with themselves, then it changes your environment, your families, your friends. We really are able to do this. So show up.
One person. That's the only way it's going to happen. It's in it's in you and you and you and you and you. You are the one. You are the one to do it. You are the one to become the sacred space. You are the one to choose to keep your sacredness in your relationships, the sacredness in the earth, to not harm animals, to not harm children, to honor the waters, to honor the food. It's literally like that simple. It's so simple. But in that simplicity, you'll notice the complexity. But that's where it starts, in just honoring the sacred and just tuning in and having a appreciation and respect for
the beauty that is already here, the beauty and the magic that is already here, and just that in and of itself will begin to make changes in everybody that you meet. If you're doing that, if you're leading by example, you're conscious of the food, you're conscious of your trash, you're conscious of the words that you speak, of who you are. Who are you in your relationships? Are you the one that is inspired and inspiring? Or are you complaining? Are you hateful? Are you trying to tear people down? Who are you? You have the choice. You make the choice every single moment. You can be the inspired one that people will go, wow, I'm going to change too. I'm going to do something good. Yes, I want to do that. Right? Or you can be a person that just puts everybody down and tries to take all their power away. I mean, what good is that? It's not going to give you any more power. It's not going to help the world at all. So that's my major thing. It's just to be the person that's inspiring.
Well, you've certainly inspired us. We're running out of time, and I want to make sure. Do people still take your classes? Are you teaching? Do you have enough time to teach in your busy life now?
Yeah, I just finished. Literally, a couple days ago, we had our closing ceremony for my Priestess Path Valkyrie course.
Wonderful. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to write my book, my Priestess book, and so I need to focus on that. And it'll probably be next year when I open up my temple again for people to come and connect. So if you just go to my website, elizabethwilcock.com, and you make sure that you put your name in there, you'll know whatever it is I'm doing.
And that's perfect timing. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yay.
Thank you.
Tom Becker.
Thank you.
Sasha.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Aloha. Make it aloha.
Aloha.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week.
Yes.
But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting.
Yes, I see.
By a simple majority in the case of purely internal affairs.
Be quiet.
But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more...
Be quiet.
I order you to be quiet.
Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left.
Yes, I have. Look!
It's just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. What? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible.
You're a loony.
The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling you to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Now, do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution Radio.
The original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line with a